Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history. That's actual physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or you're retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone right now for your free Roger Stone Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit. Or call 800-747-6589. That's 800-747-6589. Call now to receive your free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.
It's More Money with leading economist Steve Moore. Now, here's your host, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WBC Talk Radio. My next guest is the great John Fund. You all know John Fund from his many, many years as one of the lead writers on the Wall Street Journal editorial page. He and I served together for a while together on that esteemed opinion page, the most important opinion page in America. He also works with me at Unleash Prosperity and is a constant writer for National Review, a national icon. John Fund, thanks for joining.
We have nothing to talk about, of course.
All right, let's get right down to it, my friend. So I wanted to bring you on because I know some of my listeners are really worried about voter fraud, voter integrity. They're worried about non-citizens voting. And you're the expert on this. You've written the book on stealing elections. So let's start with the issue of this House bill that passed. I think it passed the bill, what they call the SAFE Act, which would basically require proof of citizenship to vote. Explain what happened there.
Well, it actually requires proof of citizenship to register to vote.
To register, okay.
And we don't have great evidence because there's a lot of people who don't want to collect the evidence about how many non-citizens vote. But we do have some evidence that a lot of non-citizens are registering to vote. And, of course, there's nothing to stop them at that point from voting. In fact, Governor Youngkin in Virginia just removed over 6,000 non-citizens from the voting rolls because he said, look, whether it was by accident or consciously, they're registering to vote. And previous surveys have found 20 to 25% of them do vote.
So if you talk about numbers that big, they could have a big impact on local elections, but even the national election.
Well, always remember the 2000 presidential race was decided in one state, Florida, by 531 votes.
That's pretty amazing.
We need is a repeat of 2020, where there are 3 or 4 states that are very, very close.
Right.
And there's lawsuits and arguments and division and polarization over that. Let's have honest and fair elections that everyone can agree on.
So the left says that. So basically, tell us about the vote that happened in the House. Virtually all the Republicans voted for this, but most of the Democrats voted no.
Every single Republican voted for it, and 5 Democrats, including 3 members of the Hispanic caucus.
Wow. And so I can't understand I understand why Democrats may want to allow non-citizens to vote, but I don't understand but the vast majority, isn't the polling showing that Americans support, that only citizens vote?
Oh, it's by over 70%, all demographic groups.
Yeah.
And, only a few cities currently allow non-citizens to vote in school board and local elections. New York City tried to do that, but a court overruled it. But the danger is if we have a lax attitude on this and we don't care and we don't enforce it, the pressure will build for some blue states to start allowing people to vote in local and state elections.
Yeah. So we now so what's the status of this? The bill did pass the House, but then what happened in the Senate? Or it didn't pass?
Of course, Chuck Schumer has no interest in it. So having another vote in the House over this budget continuing resolution will put more pressure on the Senate to address it. But, Steve, we even have a more pressing need. Tomorrow, Friday, North Carolina begins mailing out absentee mail-in ballots to voters, and other states are going to follow soon after. We have turned Election Day into 2 election months.
Oh my God.
Not only does it create confusion because we're going to have debates after people have already voted. We're going to have massive confusion. And let me just give you a number that should scare every American.
Wait, hold on. Just time out for 1 second. If somebody early votes and then they've changed their mind, they can't change their vote, can they?
In a couple states you can, but it's very complicated. And
Yeah.
effectively, in almost all the states, you can't. You're locked in.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Now, here's the number that everyone should be scared about. The U.S. Election Assistance Commission says that in 2020, almost 15 million mail ballots effectively disappeared after they were given to the U.S. Postal Service to deliver to voters. Now, what happened to those? Well, the Postal Service is increasingly inefficient, so there's evidence some of them didn't make it or didn't make it in time. A lot of them, and I've seen this myself in Nevada, ended up in the lobbies of apartment buildings, never to be claimed, or if they were claimed, perhaps voted by somebody else. Some went to outdated addresses or the addresses of dead voters. Some went to vacant lots and businesses. Some were rejected by election officials when they were returned. 1.1 million of those ballots were sent to the wrong addresses.
Oh my
Now,
God.
this creates massive confusion. It
And
means
fraud.
that people are going to get a ballot in their mail that often is not in their name, and there's an enormous temptation by some people to say, gee, I can have 2 votes for the price of 1.
Right. And so what do we do about that?
Well, we need a lot of scrutiny on Election Day and a lot of pressure on election officials to use the safeguards against improper mail-in balloting when they're counted. The safeguards like signature verification were often thrown out by states because of COVID and the enormous number of people who voted early and absentee. We have to make sure that officials follow the letter of the law, cross the T's, dot the I's, because 69% of people, Steve, in 2020 voted earlier by mail. 69%.
So it's not election day any longer. It's not even election week. It's not even election month. You're saying it's now election 2 months.
Well, even
Which-
worse than that, Steve, if we don't monitor the election properly and have people agree that it was free and fair, we're going to have election day bleed into election 2 months of arguments and lawsuits
God.
and everything else.
God.
We're going to take this process to a 4-month process when it used to take 1 day.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So this is something I've never asked you about before, but when you were talking about the potential fraud, let's say you are caught voting twice or signing someone else's name to a ballot or something like that. What kind of penalties are attached to that?
Well, the first problem is prosecutors, first of all, hate these cases because they're very political. If you're an ambitious prosecutor, you're going to anger half the political community depending on which candidate benefited from this. So they tend to put this at the bottom of the pile. In addition, they have to prove motivation. If they can't prove that you did this consciously and willfully, they almost never prosecute.
That's so bad because that means it's like a crime that's never punished, and that only encourages.
To prevent it before it happens.
Yeah.
By the way, and you asked what the impact can be. Look, Joe Biden carried Arizona by 10,000 votes in 2020.
Yeah.
In Phoenix alone, there were 110,000 ballots that were sent to outdated or wrong addresses.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Biden carried Nevada by 33,000 votes. Las Vegas's Clark County sent 93,000 ballots.
Jeez.
Officials say are unaccounted for. They went to outdated or wrong addresses. Now, most of those simply were thrown away or nothing was done to them. But there was nothing preventing anyone from voting in someone else's name, and we would never have found out.
So just in our last minute then, John, how do you feel about the election process this year in these states like Pennsylvania and Arizona and Georgia, the ones that obviously really matter, those 5 or 6 battleground states? Do you feel like the safeguards are there to have a safe election? Does more need to be done? It's
too late. We have to have proper enforcement, and we have to have a lot of election observers. The situation is better in states like Arizona and Georgia. It's worse in states like Michigan. It's about the same as it is.
Well, why is it worse?
Because
in Michigan?
Governor Whitmer of Michigan and the Democratic legislature have basically changed all the election rules, tossed a whole bunch of things out, and made it much, much easier to have chaos and confusion. In Pennsylvania, it's a mixed bag, but there's a battle now in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Will they allow absentee ballots mail-in ballots that arrive after Election Day without a postmark, will they allow them to be counted? If
Well,
Pennsylvania
it depends. That depends on who's winning, right? If Kamala Harris is winning, they'll probably say no, and if
here's the danger.
Trump is winning,
it could be decided county by county.
Oh, I know.
The 14th Amendment problem. Are you having equal justice under law if one county has one set of rules and counting ballots and another county next door has another set of rules?
Well, there you have it, folks. We've got a big election coming up where I'm not so sure that we've really tightened up this process enough. I mean, we've got 8 to 10 million illegal immigrants in the country. If even only 5% of them are voting, that's another 500,000 votes. And we know which way those people would probably vote. So it's a scary situation. We have to do the best we can. But John, thanks for educating us on this issue and for being a guard dog, because that's what we need. We need to call these people out if they're cheating. Everybody wants an honest election. John Fund, thanks for joining. Folks, this is the More Money Show on WABC.